My fiancé started having late meetings every Tuesday. At first, it sounded grown up, the kind of phrase that belongs to people in suits whose phones vibrate with purpose. He'd say it casually, keys in a bowl, kissing my cheek, tying his tie with the confident tug of a man who liked mirrors. "Don't wait up, Noor. It's a late one." I'd nod like I understood corporate nocturnes, pour curry into 2 bowls, and cover his with foil. We were 24. We had a Pinterest board, a joint savings account with a ridiculous name, Castle Fund, and a wedding date circled in gold on the fridge calendar. I could tell you the exact shade of our table linens, dusk lilac, the playlist we'd fight over. No, absolutely not perfect again, Farhan. And the way he wiped his mouth with a thumb when he was about to lie, it started small. 1 meeting stretched into 3. The food we'd meant to eat stayed in its foil, a little tomb. I knew the names he said: clients, colleagues, a project manager who always seemed to be having a crisis at 9 p.m. I knew his calendar and his cologne and the sounds our hallway made when he came home. The first time suspicion pricked me, it was because of the lavender. Lavender wasn't mine. Lavender wasn't him. Lavender was a streak of air on his hoodie at 11:52 p.m. as he kicked off his sneakers and grinned at me with a smile that was a fraction too wide. "Client dinner ran long," he said. "Where?" "Luna Studio." That was a bar, not a studio. I knew because I'd looked it up months ago when he told me we should go sometime. It had a neon sign and too many plants. It's where people took pictures of their drinks, not where they closed deals. I nodded anyway. If you love someone, sometimes you nod, as if agreement is a bridge you can build by yourself. The lavender kept arriving. It clung to the black wool of his coat and the inside of his car. I asked teasingly, "Are you cheating on me with a spa?" He laughed into my neck and promised he'd take me to a spa after the audit. A couple's thing. Hot stones. You can be the stone. He was exhausting and charming, and I wanted him to be true. When I told my best friend Tisha about the lavender, she rubbed the edge of her coffee cup like it had answers. "Could be the office diffuser," she offered. "Do diffusers crawl into your coat and set up camp?" "Some might. Aggressive ones," she looked at me. "Do you want me to say you're paranoid or that you should check his phone?" "I want you to say I'm wrong," I said. "I can't say what I don't know." That night, while Farhan showered, his watch lit up on the nightstand. I don't snoop. Or I didn't, before a neon bar and a chorus of late meetings. The watch was just lying there, glowing like a small moon. The notification was a preview anyone could read without unlocking. Thunder Squad. Boys Luna again? 10. Boys Luna again. You don't grow up with 4 cousins without recognizing a group chat name that smells like invincible mischief. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Thunder Squad. Luna. 10 p.m. I pictured him at a table with people I barely knew, fingers tapping glasses, thumbs typing late meeting, while a neon sign buzzed overhead. I told myself it could still be nothing, a harmless lie, a harmless group of harmless boys saying harmless things like late meeting, because men like cover stories the way kids like blankets. I told myself the lavender was a candle drafted into service by overzealous management. I told myself we were fine. Then on a Thursday, not his late meeting day, his messages came in sparse and slippery. Emergency call. Hold dinner. Sudden crisis. My own crisis was that his colleague Faisal, whom he claimed to be meeting, had posted an airport selfie 12 hours earlier. Hello, Singapore? Photos of a boarding pass, a warm towel, a view of clouds that could have been any clouds. But definitely not our city, and definitely not sitting across from my fiancé. The next day, a rideshare receipt hit our joint email. Pick up Luna Studio. Drop off Matin Apartments. I didn't know anyone at Matin Apartments. Neither did Farhan if you asked him at breakfast, when he said he'd had 1 quick drink and taken a ride home alone. The receipt stared at me with its cold little map. Matin Apartments after breakfast. I opened a note on my phone and typed, Matin Lavender, Thursday, Thunder Squad, Luna. Sometimes you make a list to keep your heart from making excuses. I waited until Saturday to ask, because we had flowers to pick and a deposit to finalize, and my mother had made biryani to keep your cheeks round, which might be love in disguise. In the florist's parking lot, with sunlight sitting on the dashboard like an orange, I said, "Do you know anyone at Matin Apartments?" He blinked. "No, why? Just wondering." Your rideshare went there. His eyes did a frantic dart, then came back to me. I swapped rides with Amir. He lives there. You know Amir. I did not know an Amir. He knew I did not. He said the name like throwing it, hoping it would turn into a shield. Right, I said, and wrote Amir next to Lavender. There is a point in every list when the handwriting goes from slanted to sharp. I could feel mine tilting. On Tuesday, I drove to Luna Studio. I told myself I was going to prove myself ridiculous. I wore a hoodie and my hair in a bun and felt like every dramatic girl in every story your aunt tells to warn you about urban girls and their crazy. Inside, music was a gentle thump, and the plants looked like they had their own mirrors. Tables were lit by circles of warmth that made people glow. Farhan was there. He was facing away from me, head thrown back. He wasn't touching anyone. He was with men I recognized from 2 barbecues and a woman whose coat was draped over her chair like a lazy cat. I could see her hair, glossy and full, the kind of hair that makes product commercials cry. Lavender floated across the room, and I didn't know if it came from her or the woman behind her or the bar itself, pumping out a signature scent. I could have marched over, made a scene, been the dramatic girl who throws champagne and says, "How could you?" I could have set our whole life on fire in the glow of a neon sign. I didn't. I watched long enough to see Farhan lay his hand on the back of the chair next to him, casual and claimed, and the woman lean in to say something so close that it touched his mouth. I left. In my car, my hands shook on the steering wheel so badly that I laughed. It was the laugh you hear in movies right before something breaks. I called Tisha. "Do you want me to bring a bat or brownies?" she asked. "Screenshots," I said. "I need screenshots." "What are you going to do with screenshots?" I didn't know yet, only that if I said you lied, he'd say I didn't, and then we'd be in the land of he said she saw forever. Screenshots were an anchor. Screenshots were proof with edges. At home, the house was a still life. Lemons in a bowl. A pair of running shoes by the door. The iPad was on the coffee table, screen dark. I stared at it for a long time before touching it like a hot pan. The lock screen was a photo of us, melted laughing in a goofy angle. Our passcode was the date we got engaged because Farhan said he'd never forget that, 0624. I put my thumb on the numbers and each beep sounded like a betrayal of something. Or maybe everything had opened. Clouds of apps slid across a field of icons. I swallowed hard and tapped the blue bubble that held his messages. My heart hammered so hard, my vision fuzzed at the edges like the world was buffering. Thunder Squad was there, fat with unread dots. I tapped and watched the group chat bloom into a parliament of male voices. Luna 10? Late meeting cover. Late meeting is my fave colleague. My wife bought it last week, Kings. Farhan. Tell Noor it's audit season, lol. Bro, the lavender diffuser was genius. I stared at the screen and the words lost their letters and became knives. The last message was a video. It was shot under pink light, the kind that made everything look like love. Farhan was at a table, grinning. The camera panned to the woman with the glossy hair. She leaned in and kissed his jaw. In the background, someone shouted, "Late meeting!" I didn't cry. That was the oddest part. My chest felt like a glass of water too full to move without spilling, but there were no tears. I scrolled for dates, for patterns. Tuesdays, Thursdays sometimes. A Saturday once, the excuse then, bachelor sick planning, which was a double insult. At least learn to spell the word you're using to lie to me. I took screenshots until my album looked like a manual for betrayal. The woman had a name. It appeared in a private message. Ria. There were heart emojis. There were jokes about lavender. There was a calendar invite that said, "Late meeting," with the location pin dropped, hilariously, at Luna Studio, as if they couldn't be bothered to lie to their own calendars. I sat back on the couch with the iPad loose on my knees. The house hummed as houses do when there's no sound inside you to drown it. The clock ticked. A neighbor laughed. Once I would have waited for Farhan to come home and asked for a reason to forgive him because forgiveness was a muscle I was proud of. I thought of my mother telling me that love is not a war, where you win by losing more blood. I thought of my father quietly polishing the same spoon after dinner to avoid taking sides in the universe. I thought of the gold circle on the fridge calendar. Then I thought of younger me, the Noor who once stood in front of a class and said, "I want to build things that don't break." She meant buildings then, small cardboard cities at science fair tables, but the point still held. I opened photos, selected the screenshots. and hit the little square with the arrow. Share. The screen flicked to contacts and apps. I tapped messages, typed Thunder, and the chat popped up like a snake from a basket. I wrote, "Hi, Thunder Squad. This is Noor. Since you all have been advising my fiancé on late meeting cover stories, I thought you should have this for your records." I attached 26 screenshots. The chat register rolled them into a neat stack. The last thing on the list was the video of Rhea kissing him and the chorus of late meeting behind it. I looked at my message, at the blue bubble holding my calm letter, and I pressed send. The little delivered appeared like a bell. For 2 minutes, nothing happened. Then the chat exploded. "Bro? Noor, this is a misunderstanding. Delete this now. Not cool to drag all of us. Damn Farhan. Lol, this is wild. Noor, can we talk? Who even are you? Noor, I'm so sorry." "Farhan, answer your phone, bro." I watched the messages pile. I didn't reply. It wasn't a conversation. It was a mirror. I put the iPad down like it was heavy. Farhan called. I let it ring. He called again. I let it ring until my bones vibrated. On the third time I answered, "Why would you do that?" He said. "Not hello, because my fiancé has been having a very long, late meeting, and I thought his colleagues should know he'll be late forever." "Do you know how embarrassing it is to be called out in a group chat?" "Yes." I looked at the lemons in the bowl, shining like they had nothing to do with any of this. "I know exactly how embarrassing it is." "It was nothing," he said, and his voice hit that charming register that could sell me my own couch. "It was all a joke. The boys talked big. Rhea's just a friend. In the video, she's kissing your jaw," I said. "Friendly jaw kisses? It was a dare." "Ah," I said. "So you weren't cheating. You were playing truth or dare at 30 in a bar named after Light." He swore softly. "Noor, don't do this." "Do what? Hold up the mirror?" "We're adults. We have the language. Use it." He was quiet for so long that I thought the call had dropped. When he spoke, he sounded like a boy who'd just been told Santa was a lawsuit. "I messed up once, twice, I can fix it. I'll block her. I'll delete the chat. I'm not interested in your delete key," I said. "I'm interested in your spine and where it was on Tuesday night." He came home fast. The keys clattered into the bowl too loud. He found me on the couch and knelt like he was proposing to his own apology. "I watched him the way you watch an actor you used to love in a play that isn't working anymore." "Noor," he said, and his voice wobbled. "I love you." "I believe you did," I said, because the past tense felt like the only kindness left. "You'll ruin everything," he said suddenly, the wobble gone, the sting under it showing. "The families. The money we put down? My mother will be humiliated." "She will not," I said, standing. "Your mother will be fine. She will ice a cake and say something about evil eyes. I'm the one who will be expected to go small so everyone else can be comfortable." "I'm not going small." His face twisted into something mean and ordinary. "You're overreacting." I thought of the Thunder Squad messages, of "Late meeting is my fav colleague." I thought of lavender and neon and the way he'd wiped his mouth with his thumb. "I'm reacting," I said. "Exactly." The rest of that night was a storm that moved across our living room, knocking over chairs and little ceramic lives we'd arranged. There were names hurled like plates, mine, his, Rhea, Amir who did not exist, and then there was quiet. When it finally came, it sat heavy. Farhan slept in the guest room. I didn't sleep at all. I watched the square of light on the wall shift and thought about being 24 and standing in the middle of my life with a bowl of lemons. In the morning, I called vendors. The hall, the caterer, the photographer who'd shown us lights like constellations. The word cancel burned the roof of my mouth, but I said it and didn't die. We lost deposits. We gained air. I called my parents. My mother went quiet in a way that told me her voice was doing an intense computation. "Come home," she said finally. "I made biryani." "It keeps," my father said equally softly. "I will bring the car, and I will not honk when I arrive." That, from him, was poetry. Farhan texted me a photo of the ring sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it. "You're making a mistake," he wrote. I looked at the rose gold loop, at the tiny diamonds that had once felt like a future stitched into metal, and I thought, the mistake already happened. It just didn't have my name on it. The Thunder Squad continued to swirl that day. Individual members pinging me with apologies, explanations, offers to vouch for Farhan that sounded like they thought marriage was a job interview. 2 of them wrote with real remorse. One, Asif, whom I remembered for cutting pie with gusto, sent a long message. I'm sorry. It becomes a thing, a sport. None of us said, this is ugly. That's on me too. I surprised myself by writing back. Thank you for saying it. It didn't fix anything, but it didn't make me smaller either. Ria messaged me on Instagram 2 days later. I didn't know he was engaged, she wrote. I almost didn't reply. Then I did, with the strange feeling that the heroine of a different story was knocking on my door. You do now, I wrote. We met in a cafe with the kind of chairs no one buys except cafes. She was my age. The glossy hair was hers, not a plot device. She looked like she hadn't slept, which made 2 of us. She said she was sorry and meant it. She said Farhan had told her we were complicated, which is a word men put between themselves and consequences. I could have checked, she said, fingers on her cup. I guess I didn't want to. Me neither, I said. Want to know? We sat there, 2 women holding a man at a distance like an odd object in a museum. We had coffee like a ritual and didn't become friends. We didn't need to. It was enough that we didn't become enemies. I moved into a studio apartment with a window that watched a tree learn to be green again. I returned the seating chart cards to their box and labeled it paper. It felt like a magic trick. 200 people vanished from my future with a sticker. I cried in faucets, clean, endless. I stopped wearing the hoodie that smelled like lavender because I wasn't interested in turning my grief into merchandise. On Tuesday nights, I ran by the river. It's astonishing how your body stays your body even when your life changes outfits. I ran until my lungs were little storms and my legs were letters spelling out, still here. On Thursdays, I took a night class in architectural rendering because the Noor who wanted to build things that don't break deserved more than nostalgia. My mother texted me recipes that started with, you will chop 4 onions, not 3, which is how she says, I love you, eat. My father sent photos of the dog staring at the door like he expected Farhan and his sneakers. Tisha came over with brownies, no bat, and watched dumb shows with me while we said surprisingly little, and it was exactly right. The group chat culture hums around a lot of our lives like electricity you don't ask about until you smell smoke. Thunder Squad died a soft death days after my message. Asif told me he left. It felt like being 15 in a 40-year-old jacket, he wrote. I want to be better than that. I wished him luck. I wished them all better friends. Farhan tried one last time. He stood under my new doorway with his hands in his pockets like a schoolboy expecting math. I'm going to therapy, he said. I joined a different gym. I blocked everyone. I've had a week to think. A week, I said, with a smile that might have been real once. We were together 4 years. I know. He looked at the floor, then at me like there was a version of me I might be willing to become if he said the right string of words. We could fix it. We were us. We were a version of us, I said. A version that required me to believe in late meetings like they were elves. I don't want that version anymore. He nodded as if he had expected me to say exactly that and still hoped I wouldn't. He left, and my apartment breathed in. Fall turned to winter, turned to spring like it always does, indifferent and perfect. I got better at drawing light that looked like light. I said yes to little things and no to big things that didn't fit. I went to weddings and danced with my friends and excused myself from bouquet tosses with the smoothness of a magician palming a coin. Sometimes the past walked up and tapped me on the shoulder in a grocery store or a song or a smell. Lavender would come out to play and I'd stand very still until it passed. The last time I saw Farhan was on a Tuesday in June. The sky had just realized it was summer and wanted to show off. He was coming out of a coffee shop, and he looked older in that way some people do when they finally meet their own reflection. He saw me and lifted a hand but didn't reach all the way up. I lifted mine the rest of the way. It felt like closing a book that has your name on the inside cover but belongs in the library now. Hey, he said. Hey. How are you? Good, I said, and meant it in the simplest possible way. The way you mean water when you've been thirsty. He started, then stopped. You look happy. I am, I said. He nodded. We stood there in the polite bigness of outside. I almost asked if he still had Tuesday meetings, and then didn't, because sometimes jokes are a way of dragging the past into the present. And I wanted the present to travel light. "Take care," he said. "You too." When I got home, I opened my laptop and wrote a letter to myself. It's something my therapist, yes, I went too. It turns out, not going small includes asking for help, recommended for the moments when stories Frey and you want to tie them into knots. I wrote, "Dear Noor, if someone tells you they need late meetings, let them meet everything they need late without you. You want true. You want lilies that bloom or die without someone sneaking silk ones into the bouquet. You want rooms where you can hear your own shoes on the floor. You want Tuesdays that smell like river and not excuses. You built a life from the ground up and then stayed with it when someone tried to light the scaffolding. Remember what the electrician said when he came to fix your breaker? 'Ma'am, the wires will hum, that's their job. But if they spark, you don't put up a poster. You flip the switch. Consider this your switch. Love you." I printed the letter and taped it inside the cupboard with the mugs. Every morning when I reached for a cup, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It was a note to future selves, a way of leaving breadcrumbs that weren't for men to find. Months later, Tisha and I were at the river when she said, out of nowhere, "I'm proud of you." For running 2 miles without calling the paramedics? I panted. "For not going small," she said, "and for sending those screenshots." I laughed. "You never liked Thunder Squad." "Thunder belongs in the sky," she said, "not in grown men pretending their choices fell out of the clouds." We ran until the sun fell into the water and turned it gold. I went home, opened my window, and the tree was being a tree and the world was doing its job. I made tea and used the mug with the chip because I like the way it feels under my lip. A little reminder that perfect is brittle. Sometimes I think about that night I sat with the iPad in my lap, a small glowing rectangle in a house full of shadows. I think of the me that pressed send and I want to hug her. Not because she was fearless. She wasn't. But because she decided that fear wasn't going to be the project manager of her life anymore. Here's the thing. People will tell you that exposure is ugly, that you should have kept it between you and him, that airing things is a kind of violence. Maybe sometimes it is. Maybe sometimes it's a deeply private business and nobody else owns it. But sometimes a group chat is not private. Sometimes it's a stadium where people cheer for the wrong things and throw paper planes made of lies. Sometimes the most precise way to say, "I see you and I won't play," is to hold up a mirror to a room full of boys and let them watch themselves. After the tea, after the letter, after the long year that felt like a week and vice versa, I sat on my windowsill and thought, what a relief that truth doesn't need marketing. It just sits there, patient as a lemon in a bowl, and waits for someone to stop pretending it's an orange. The Tuesday after that, I had a late meeting. With myself. I turned off my phone, drew the lamps closer, and built a tiny model of a house on my table, a cardboard shape with windows cut out and a roof that lifted off so light could reach every room. It was a silly middle school project, except it wasn't. It was a miniature of a promise. I wrote in pencil on the underside of the roof, "This house has no late meetings. This house is lit from inside." And then, like a child who has just invented something and wants to show everyone, I lifted the little roof and smiled at the way the light pooled onto my table and spilled into my hands. The end.